So over the time I've been doing this channel, I would say one of the most popular strings that's come up with requests to use and review has been Restring Sync as a cross. And then since I've been using Natural Gut, again, a lot of people have said, I really should try Restring Sync as a cross string for Natural Gut. And the claim seems to be around more pocketing, more feel, and a slightly softer response with the string I have been using in the cross, which is Luxilon 4G. So this is exactly what I've done. I've got Luxilon Natural Gut with Restring Sync in the crosses. And here's what I thought. So first off, in terms of why have I done this and what the setup is. So first, let's talk about the setup. I've got Luxilon Natural Gut. This is the 1.3 mil at 56 pounds with a 10% pre-stretch. And then I've got Restring Sync 1.25 mil at 54 pounds in the crosses. This in my Technifiber T-Fight 305S. And just around what I've actually done with this, I've played it now for about 12 hours. And that's a mix of playing in tournaments, club doubles matches, general training. And what I'm going to do in this review is tell you what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and then whether this would be my string of choice. Now, one thing I want to call out is why now? Why have I suddenly tried this? So since starting this channel, I didn't really know anything about Restring as a brand, but you very quickly learn as you start doing this and then looking around more and more at strings, that Restrings is a bit of a Marmite brand. And what I mean by that is that I started to become aware that lots of YouTubers were reviewing Restring, typically Restring Zero, where every single reviewer seemed to be talking about it and it was being presented as the absolute best thing ever. And yeah, I tried it. I thought it was good, but I didn't really think it was the best thing out there. I mean, for me, it's not even a top 10 string. So when people recommend Restring Sync, I do think that people have commented just by judging the comments they put on the channel over time. I kind of respect their opinions, but still in the back of my mind, there's this is Restring. Is it actually that good? Or is it just another example of hype being much better than the reality? And after testing it properly, I think I can put some answers to that. Now, one thing I want to address as well is cost of this. So in the UK, there's only one distributor and a set of this costs £13.50 for the Restring Sync, while a reel will cost £160. So that is actually slightly cheaper than Luxilon 4G. I think I can get that for around £185 a reel. But for a round poly, honestly, it's still quite expensive. There are plenty of excellent round polys out there that you can get for 100, 110, 120. Even there are some good ones for around 60 to 80 pounds a reel. So straight away, you kind of think Sync really has to justify that premium price. And then again, just in terms of how I've set this up, I strung it exactly the same as I've been stringing the Natural Gut with 4G, same tension, same racket, so I can get kind of this like for like comparison. So then if we talk about the on-court performance, the first thing I noticed was exactly what people have been saying. There is definitely more pocketing. The ball feels like it sits on the string slightly longer and you get a noticeably softer, more connected sensation at contact. And even with Natural Gut in the mains, which already provides excellent feel, the difference compared to having 4G in the crosses was really clear. And it did feel genuinely very, very good. So I think if that is what you're looking for from a cross string, then Sync absolutely delivers. The second thing I noticed was that over the 12 hours I played with it, it didn't experience any meaningful drop off in performance. The response stayed consistent, the field stayed consistent, the string bed didn't suddenly become unpredictable. Now, some of that may be due to the Natural Gut mains, which are already very stable, but regardless, the setup held up extremely well. But where things got a little more interesting was control. Restring describes Sync as delivering excellent control and outstanding feel. I completely agree with the outstanding feel part. The control part is a little more nuanced. I actually found it easier to overhit with this setup compared to 4G. Not dramatically, not to the point where it became uncontrollable, but enough that I noticed it. Even that I started wanting something slightly crisper and slightly firmer. Now, the other thing I did notice was that there was more spin off this than with the 4G setup. And you'd maybe kind of expect that if it's a little bit softer, a bit more elastic. I'm not exactly a big spin player. I hit flatter. I've got a flat hitting racket setup, but I did definitely notice more spin. So then when we think about Sync versus 4G, this is where it gets a bit interesting. So I've actually got my other racket strung up with the Luxilon Natural Gut and 4G in the crosses. And as I was play testing this, I was switching back and forwards between the two. And when I did that, the difference was really, really clear. The 4G setup felt a lot firmer. much crisper, much more direct. But here's the surprising part. After spending time with Sync in the crosses, it actually made me realize that while I do actually prefer something a bit crisper and firmer, 4G is too firm. So I think Sync has taught me something really quite important. It showed me that I probably do want something a bit softer than 4G, just not quite as soft as Sync. And that's why I think this review is not going to come down to, is this better, is this worse? Some people have put comments that there is no such thing as better or best, it's just what works for you. It is all down to preference. So if you're someone who really loves that extra pocketing, that enhanced feel, and a slightly softer response, then I can see you would absolutely love Restring Sync. But if you are someone who prioritizes maximum crispness, maximum control, you may still prefer 4G or at least a stiffer string. And for me, actually, the ideal solution, I think, in fact, I know, sits somewhere in the middle. The other challenge I have with Sync and the other Restring strings is pricing. Now, if you're already using Natural Gut, you're paying quite a lot. Adding the Restring Sync, to be honest, it's not like it's massively changing the cost of things. And of course, while it's £13.50 a set, you're only using half of that if you're using it as a hybrid. The difference per restring isn't huge. And if that is what's best for you, then I think, you know what, unless you're really saying, I literally don't have the money for it, then the cost probably doesn't matter too much. But when I do look at the wider market, I still struggle to see how Restring Sync is this unique product that justifies standing apart from the countless other round, slick poly strings that frankly cost less money. And that is not a criticism of the string itself. It's a good string. I just don't think it's operating in a category of one. So my final verdict, where do I land on Restring Sync? I think it's a genuinely really good string. The feel is excellent, the pocketing is excellent, the playability remained very consistent over my playing period. Note, I didn't go further just because I didn't really want to. And if you are looking for something to soften up the hybrid of a Natural Gut, or probably other poly strings, without completely sacrificing control, it does do a very good job. What I don't think is it's some miracle string that automatically replaces everything else on the market. For me personally, it softened the bed up just a little more than I wanted. Now, in fact, I've actually, in another racket, strung up Toraline A5 in the crosses. That I've done with Pacific Gut. I've actually done it in the TF40. In terms of the stiffness and pocketing, it probably sits between 4G and Restring Sync. But even with that, there's the price question, because that's not a cheap string either. So for this, my conclusion is fairly simple. Restring Sync is good. Very good, in fact. But whether it's good for you will depend on where it sits between that spectrum of feel and firmness, but also how it sits in terms of when you look at the price of it. If you've tried it, please let me know your thoughts in the comments, particularly if you did try a whole bunch of other strings before you landed on this one. Why? Alternatively, if you have found another string which maybe sits around the same feel, but frankly costs less, it'd be really good to get your thoughts on that as well. Always good to share. Leave your thoughts in the comments.